The Australian Financial Review.
Australia has had its fair share of billionaire succession sagas. The Murdochs battled it out in court last year, the Pratts have been caught up with their own legal struggles, and now trucking billionaire Lindsay Fox appears to be having trouble handing over control of his empire. That empire, Linfox, is not necessarily a household name, but it touches almost every part of Australian lives, and it has expanded into Asia. Lindsay Fox describes its success as a fairy tale.
When you think of the numbers and look at it today, it's very hard to understand how you've done it when you started with no money at all.
It's a rags to riches story for the ages, but now that he is looking to pass on those riches, some cracks are emerging in the family succession plan. Recently, eldest son Peter Fox announced he was stepping back from his executive duties.
The official line from the family is that he's taking a much-needed long break after a hectic couple of years, but there is a bit of mystery as to why he went on leave.
Welcome to The Fin. I'm Lisa Murray. This week, senior reporter James Eyers on why Peter Fox has taken an unexpected break at a crucial time, what it means for the Linfox succession plan, and how hard it is to hand over the billions. It's Thursday, February 5. Hi James, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Good to be with you again, Lisa.
Normally we have you on here to talk about the intricacies of the crypto market or a financial services breaking story, but today it's trucking.
Yeah, it is trucking.
Over 7 decades, the Fox family have built an empire that stretches from trucks to airports and property and is now worth an estimated $5.7 billion. And one of the remarkable things about this story is it started with just one truck. How did Lindsay Fox create his multi-billion-dollar fortune?
Look, this is a quintessential Australian story, Lisa. From truck driver to billionaire. I mean, the foundation story's been pretty well told.
I was a high school dropout.
Lindsay Fox dropped out of Melbourne High School in year 10.
At 16, I managed to get my driver's licence.
You know, he lied about his age.
I cheated on my age.
And he started driving trucks, initially for his father, who was also a truck driver.
And then I managed to convince a truck wrecker, EV Tims, that in those days were in Collingwood.
And then he buys his first truck, which was a Ford,
to sell me a truck on 4 100-pound promissory notes.
On a payment plan for £400. This was 1956, the year Melbourne hosted the Olympic Games, and he was 19.
That's where it started.
And Linfox is born. He started delivering soft drinks in the summer, like the early customers were Coca-Cola and Schweppes.
From there, I carted 12 tonne of coal or coke from the West Melbourne gasworks a day.
And then in winter, it was coal for heating households in Victoria. He was a pretty handy footballer. He played about 20 top league games as the ruckman for St Kilda, then in the Victorian Football League. And he went on and got more and more trucks.
We then went to BP and started carting the heating oil in Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra, Wollongong, Newcastle, and that grew.
Securing all these other contracts.
The big turning point was probably 65 when we put one truck at Coles on a 3-month trial.
The likes of Coles in the mid-60s.
And that today is a business that runs over $300 million a year.
And BP and Woolworths in the 70s.
Courage Breweries, we won the contract in 1968, which took our fleet from 30 to 60.
So he's really this self-made businessman, one of Australia's greats.
We wanted blue chip customers that would be in business 10 years from today.
And has built up this huge empire, and with it, a considerable amount of power. I mean, listeners will have seen those signs on the backs of his trucks as they drive up and down the freeways in Australia. You're now passing another Fox.
I've seen those signs.
This is a company that effectively keeps the country ticking along. And when you go to the shops and you pick up a loaf of bread or a litre of milk.
As long as you eat, and as long as you drink, and as long as you drive.
That's in large part due to Linfox.
The trucking industry is a very vibrant one.
Linfox does compete with Toll Holdings, which is a much larger company. But Linfox still is playing this key role supplying the major supermarkets, warehousing for all these huge companies like Unilever and Wesfarmers, and even storing equipment for the Australian Defence Force. It's got more than 5,000 trucks and extensive operations in Asia. There's a Bev Chain subsidiary which handles 2 out of 3 of all of the alcoholic beverage deliveries in the country, and its Armaguard subsidiary moves cash for all the major banks and retailers. So look, it touches all parts of the economy, from fuel to car tyres, pharmaceuticals, you name it. And Linfox is turning 70 this year.
So that's a key milestone. And now the children are very involved in the business?
Yes, they are.
My eldest son's the chairman of it. So he came in when I was about 55.
And Lindsay presides over a pretty big family.
I was a Protestant, married a Catholic, and Dad said, if you marry that Catholic girl, I'm not coming to the wedding.
He married Paula.
And he never came.
In 1959, and then they went on to have 6 children before he was 30. They're Lisa.
Impressive.
They're Lisa and Peter, Katrina, Andrew and David. And a 4th son, Michael, died in 1991. There are about 17 grandchildren. And this is sort of really important, Lisa. All of Lindsay's children are closely involved in the business. Peter Fox runs the biggest part of Linfox, the trucking and the logistic operations. And they sort of accounted for $3.5 billion of the total group's $4 billion of revenue in the last financial year. And then Andrew looks after the property operations. The company operates like 8 million square feet of warehouse space and owns strategic properties all around the country, including the Phillip Island Grand Prix racetrack. And then David is in charge of the airports. Linfox owns Essendon Fields and the Avalon airports in Melbourne, while the girls, Lisa and Katrina, manage a very significant philanthropic operation.
Okay. And with all that wealth and those business operations that are so crucial to every day in Australia, with all of that comes political influence. Where do Fox's political allegiances lie?
It's an interesting question. Lindsay's been famously elusive about his political leanings. We have some clues. He told the great journalist George Negus
Labor think I'm Liberal.
back in 2004
Liberal think I'm Labor.
that he was neither Labor or Liberal,
The local rabbi calls in and drops botza once a year. What am I?
just an Australian.
I'm an Australian.
So it's a neutral political stance which makes sense given his business interests. And as I said, he grew up working class. He voted Liberal for decades, he revealed in that same interview, but then he became disillusioned with how former Prime Minister John Howard had handled the collapse of Ansett in 2002, which Fox actually tried to buy out at the time. Didn't get enough government support for that deal. But then he was a strong supporter of Tony Abbott. So he's been even-handed when it comes to political donations. But you'd probably say that the pull is especially strong on the Labor side of politics. Lindsay was very close to Bob Hawke. I mean, there are reports that Lindsay was one of Bob Hawke's closest friends and has a deep lifelong friendship with former union boss Bill Kelty.
Now, Bill sits on my boards. He is the executor of my estate.
Who until very recently was on the board of Linfox.
And in my opinion, he's one of the greatest Australians that God ever put breath into.
And back in the early 90s, Kelty and Fox were credited for creating 60,000 jobs after the early 1990s recession when Kelty was running the ACTU. There are more recent Labor connections. Dennis Richardson, who was former Secretary of Defence and also Secretary of DFAT, is currently on the board of Linfox. The family's very close to Dan Andrews. Lindsay is described by some as Andrews' go-to billionaire, and there were rumours, Lisa, I don't think these were ever officially confirmed, that Andrews was drinking at the Fox mansion when he fell and hurt his back then in 2021. But he has been in the house. A couple of summers ago, there were reports that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese did confirm that he'd flown on Lindsay's private helicopter to a 5-hour barbecue with Lindsay and Andrews at the family's mansion, which looks out over Point King Beach in Portsea. And there's also just a lot of influence through the philanthropy, which I mentioned earlier. The 87-year-old matriarch of the family, Paula, she actually received a Companion of the Order of Australia for her services to the arts and medical research into children. She's got cancer hospital in the Alfred in Melbourne named after her, the Paula Fox Melanoma and Cancer Centre, which opened in 2024. And she also made a huge $100 million donation to the new NGV Contemporary Art Gallery in Melbourne.
The trucking magnate is donating the history-making cash after some gentle persuasion from his wife, Paula.
It should be the centrepiece of a new precinct down there.
She said, well, I want some money to give the gallery. Then she told me how much, but it was too late. I'd signed the cheque.
And I think that was the biggest donation to an art museum at the time.
Yeah, well, it's a phenomenal amount of money. And they're going to call that the Fox when it opens up in 2028. And as I said earlier, Lisa and Katrina oversee the philanthropic interests. The foundation of the family sort of made around $12 million in total donations last year, like it does every year.
So they've been active philanthropists, but they've also enjoyed their wealth. They're rich listers, they live the lifestyle. How much do we know about this side of the family?
Yeah, there are yachts and trips to the Mediterranean and coastal properties from Portsea to Hawaii. In winter, there's skiing. Peter Fox was at the Australian Open Women's Final on Saturday and is going to be heading over to watch the Winter Olympics in Cortina d'Ampezzo this month. And Lindsay was at the Australian Open Final on Sunday night alongside another son, Andrew. Lindsay's known for some lavish birthday celebrations attended by prime ministers and premiers.
Political power brokers, past and present, all on day one of a 4-day bender.
He can pull a crowd.
Yeah, he pulls a crowd. I mean, these are the sort of gatherings that you might see the likes of Jeff Kennett or Eddie Maguire or Eric Bana, Greg Norman, various AFL footballers.
7 Frenchmen from the wine order of Bordeaux flown over to induct Lindsay Fox as an ambassador.
2 of the recent birthdays were Scottish-themed, Lisa, but they were men's-only tartan, kilt and whiskey type of affairs.
Well, you're a long time dead. And why celebrate after someone's gone?
And for his 85th birthday, he celebrated with the mining magnate Andrew Forrest and Solomon Lew, the famous retailer, on a 12-day cruise from New York to Montreal, which came in at an estimated cost of $5 million.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a private jet. There's a big house in Hawaii on Honolulu's exclusive Kahala Avenue. Lindsay's got a super yacht, the Volpini too. The name translates to Little Fox in Italian.
Right.
Which is 57.7 metres long, I was reading in my research. He also collects vintage cars and trucks. There's a collection of around 250 vehicles said to be worth almost $70 million. And 50 of them are on display in the Queen's Warehouse in Melbourne's Docklands. Andrew Fox, the one who runs the property group, also likes to party. He's got a big house in Toorak Road, Kooyong, where last year he had a 60th birthday bash the night before the federal election, which was attended by the Penfolds chief winemaker, Peter Gargo, and Andrew's got a pretty nice wine collection in the cellar down there, including some very expensive French bottles. The property division that Andrew runs has also made some pretty large investments in recent times, including buying one of the most prestigious golf courses in Australia, the Capital Golf Club down there in Hetherton in Melbourne's southeast for $100 million late last year from Crown Resorts. David Fox, who runs the airports, had his 50th birthday party in the Hawaiian Mansion, which was attended by Luke Sayers, the former president of the Carlton Football Club and former head of PwC in Australia. So look, there's a lot of gatherings and parties and lots of toys. But, you know, despite that, the family, by and large, I think, does fly under the radar.
Yeah.
Lindsay's recognisable, but the other siblings aren't necessarily. They're a very private family. They don't really court publicity. There's been no major scandals. We don't really know much about the way that they manage the private companies or the relationships between the siblings, which does seem rare in this day and age. Peter Fox, the eldest of the sons, is 65. And he's kept a much lower profile. He's been running the logistics operations, which make the lion's share of the profits for Linfox, since 1993. I mean, Lindsay stepped back from the day-to-day management in the late 80s, although he's still heavily involved in all of the important investment and strategic decisions. But Peter's been the executive chair, for 30 years, or over 30 years. He's got quite a direct style. It's a bit rough around the edges. He doesn't give a lot of interviews. You don't see him much in the social pages. He's quite a private guy, and so is his family. That is until the Amagard crisis, where we saw a lot more of Peter Fox.
Yeah, we did. And James, you actually came on the podcast to talk about the negotiations that were underway at the time to save Amagard, which brings cash around the country to all sorts of places. And Peter Fox did get a bit of a profile during those negotiations. How did he handle that crisis?
Yeah, that was April 2024, Lisa, that pod, how time flies.
It does.
But if we jump back to 2 years ago...
It might sound ridiculous, but we can't afford cash.
Armaguard was threatening Australia's banks that it was about to go insolvent.
Mm-hmm.
The people that truck the cash around, they're looking for a bailout from the banks.
And that came despite this merger with the rival Prosegur, which was completed the year before, that was supposed to prop up these sort of loss-making companies because the COVID pandemic had accelerated the structural decline of cash across the economy, and these companies sort of make money by delivering cash.
So if you want the cash, someone's got to truck it around. That is becoming tougher and tougher as a business in and of itself.
The merger wasn't enough to save the business. And the banks have been on notice on this for a few years. In 2021, Peter and Lindsay both attended the Senate Rural, Regional Affairs and Transport Committee to talk about the problems.
It's one of those situations where the thing is just collapsing. If that is maintained, there will be no body left in the industry, and it will have to go to the federal government to handle.
So a few years later, Armaguard comes cap in hand to its biggest 8 customers, the big 4 banks, the 2 supermarkets, Wesfarmers, Australia Post, seeking more funding. And through the Australian Banking Association, the banks offer this deal, but it comes with all these conditions that the private company didn't like. And Peter Fox and Bill Kelty famously went to the RBA and told the banks as much. They were pretty frank discussions that some of the bankers there found pretty offensive, but they were effective. And the banks sort of realised in time that their reputations could be threatened.
At stake,
if cash didn't come out of the ATM machines one day, the customers going to think there might be a problem with the banks, not necessarily with the trucking company that's supposed to deliver that cash. So they were really reliant on Armaguard. They had to cut a deal, and they ended up coughing up an extra $50 million in 2024 and another $25 million last year, which put the company on a stronger financial footing. And then late last year, after a lot of negotiations, they've finalised a long-term pricing mechanism for Armaguard, which will be set independently each year. And it's going to regulate that business like an essential utility company, and that's being finalised. So that was a really good deal for Peter and for the family. He's managed to turn around what was a loss-making operation the previous year. He's got this monopoly for delivering cash with a level of profitability that is now guaranteed. And, the larger business that we were talking about before, delivering and storing all those products across the economy, is going pretty solidly. So Peter's been considered the natural successor to Lindsay, given he's been doing this logistics role for so long. But now Peter's back in the headlines for a different reason, Lisa. And for the first time in 30 years, he's stepped away from his executive chairman role in the business. And there have been stories over the summer about a blow-up with staff and cultural issues under his leadership. Now, he's supposed to be coming back in April, but this is uncertain. And his unexpected break, which comes at a time when Lindsay's health is declining, has put the business and the family succession well and truly in the spotlight.
We're talking about the future of the Linfox empire as patriarch Lindsay Fox turns 89 this year, and speculation is rife about who will take over the logistics empire. Last month, Peter Fox, Lindsay's eldest son and executive chairman at Linfox, went on an unexpected sabbatical. James, what happened? Why did he take this decision at such a crucial time for the business?
Well, it's certainly been a talking point on the Mornington Peninsula and in Melbourne's broader power circles over the summer. He's been on extended leave from Linfox Logistics since early December. Now, look, he insists he'll be back in April, but this remains to be seen. The official line from the family is that he's taking a much-needed long break after a hectic couple of years, including all of that Armaguard stuff. He plans to attend the Winter Olympics in Italy, as I said earlier, and then he's going to be having a holiday for his daughter's 21st birthday in Aspen. But there is a bit of mystery as to why he went on leave. A few incidents involving Peter have emerged, which appear to have offended staff at Linfox and ruffled some of the family feathers. And as I was reporting this story, some of those that I spoke to said other family members didn't want Peter to return and would prefer that he stand down. It seems that Andrew doesn't get on that well with Peter and never really has. There's been long-running tension between them. and David is said to side with Andrew on occasions. We saw Andrew at the tennis final on Sunday night with Lindsay. It has emerged that there was an incident last year at the head office of Linfox in Essendon Fields where Peter asked a staff member to remove a rainbow lanyard that they were wearing. And there was concern within the family about how this might be perceived by big customers of Linfox who are supportive of the LGBTIQ workers. Now, the Linfox board is investigating this. When I put it to Peter a few weeks ago, he told me, "I'm not anti-anything, mate." So we really don't know what triggered the incident. Perhaps it was some kind of anti-woke reaction he had, or perhaps he had concerns about the process for approving the lanyards or whatnot. I mean, time may tell, and Bill Kelty is leading a review by the board of that incident. But there have been a few other things going on underneath the hood as well. Several staff have left the company, both relating to that incident I heard, but also more senior members of Linfox, which have created some ructions and appears to have upset the Linfox apple cart. There's been some industrial disputes in Victoria, and there was the loss of an important contract with the Department of Defence. So there's a bit going on, and there's ongoing tension that's been created by Lindsay's succession plan. Peter may attempt to return in April, as he says that he will. This may be resisted by other members of the family. And all this sort of uncertainty is amplifying the talk about how the succession plan is going to take place in the post-Lindsay era. Another point worth making, Lisa, is Peter's travelled internationally quite a bit over the decades, but he's never relinquished his title of executive chairman until now. But this time around, 2 other board members have stood in to replace him, and they're not members of the family. One of them is Dennis Richardson, who I mentioned before, the former Defence Secretary. He joined the Linfox board in 2017. He stepped up to chair the Australian logistics business in Peter's absence. He's also quite busy investigating for the federal government, the federal law enforcement intelligence issues following the Bondi terror attacks that will feed into the Royal Commission. There's also Trevor Hughes, a former EY tax partner who joined Linfox as a non-executive director in March 2023. He's stepped up to act as executive chairman of the international operations while Peter is absent. And Peter is staying on as executive chairman of Armaguard so he can finish that pricing mechanism that I was talking about. But there is a bit of speculation around that if Peter doesn't come back, could Andrew take over, or another sibling, or will another non-family member or an outsider step up?
And everyone's trying to read the tea leaves, aren't they? As you mentioned, they were at the tennis. Peter was there one night. Lindsay was with Andrew another night. People are looking at those optics. Do you think we could see a non-Fox running the Linfox empire?
I think that's a real possibility. It's certainly like a natural question given Peter's absence, and how the empire passes through to the siblings or the third generation is a topic of significant conjecture. I mean, Lindsay's going to be turning 89 in April. We have learned he's facing a serious illness. I mean, for now, he's said to be doing okay and he's still living the high life. He was at the tennis and he's engaged with his family. But compared to other families like the Murdochs or the Pratts or the Reinhardts, there's been very little reporting and quite little understanding on the Fox family succession plan. All of those other families were drawn into these intense legal battles where the details of the agreements ended up being argued in court. I mean, what we know about the Linfox succession, it's quite sort of thinner on the ground. According to a single report about the plan in 2017, the empire, which is worth about $6 billion, would be evenly split up between the 5 children, and the Linfox dividends will continue to be distributed equally, as they are today. Paula and the grandchildren may also sort of have access to part of the empire. When I spoke to Peter in January, he said Lindsay wanted to ensure there is fairness and equality. Fairness goes to the heart of the values of the company, Peter told me. And he denied that there were any power struggles going on, should be clear. But when Lindsay does die, many people are asking, how will the succession plan be enforced? Can it remain a case of equal share of profits forever? Is there a trust? Could it end up in court like the other families? As we think about the third generation or those grandchildren, how much will nepotism play a part in whether or not any of them are involved in the business? I mean, there have been reports that Peter didn't hire one of Andrew's daughters into a division of Linfox, which was said to be another source of all that tension. So if Peter doesn't return, people are asking whether or not the Linfox Australia CEO, Mark Merzurak, who's quite a well-respected guy, could he step up and run the business, or would they look to another outsider? maybe down the track, could even like an ASX listing be on the cards? Linfox's main competitor, Toll Holdings, was listed on the Australian Stock Exchange before it was acquired by Japan Post in 2015. So there's a lot to play out, Lisa. It's going to be very intriguing to watch.
So a final question then, James. As you mentioned, some of Australia's most high-profile family dynasties have all struggled with their successions. Why does it seem that handing over the billions to the next generation is so hard?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Rupert Murdoch, didn't we? These men keeping control of family dynasties, until they get very old. And in Murdoch's case, he was able to cement his eldest son, Lachlan's leadership last year after paying 3 of his children to exit the business following that legal dispute over the family trust. It's interesting to think, like Lachlan is 54. Lindsay had kids much earlier, so Peter is already 65. And he's had a series of quite serious health issues of his own to deal with in recent years. So with the Foxes, Lindsay's children are heading towards retirement age before Lindsay has formally let go of the reins. And then when you look at all the grandchildren in the third generation, no obvious one of them have emerged to some sort of shining light that's going to be able to carry the business forward, although several are working in it. And it reminded me, Lisa, of that concept of the third generation curse, where a lot of family wealth is squandered perhaps by the second generation and then the third generation. I think in the case of the Foxes, the second generation has done pretty well building up Lindsay's empire and seeing it grow. It remains to be seen what will happen as the third generation take control, if indeed that happens. There are some theories of that phenomenon, from the first generation sort of failing to get their estate planning in order to the third generation not being interested in money or running these businesses. But regardless of the reason for the curse, one thing is certain. I mean, anyone hoping to make their wealth last more than 3 generations needs to make a plan. And there's going to be a bit of scrutiny on the Linfox plan over the next couple of years.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, James.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thank you for listening to The Fin. I'm Lisa Murray, with Financial Review senior reporter James Eyers joining the podcast today. The Fin is produced by Mandy Coulin and Alex Gow. Fiona Buffini is head of premium content. Our theme is by Alex Gow. Thanks to A Current Affair for providing some of the audio for today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, send it to a friend, as it helps others find us, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. For more stories about markets, business and power, subscribe to the Financial Review at afr.com/subscribe. See you next week.
The Australian Financial Review.